Hey, you guys, back again with another video. Obviously, you're watching She Knows Arsenal, and my name is Jessica, and I'm your host, and you can follow me on Twitter at It's Justino. So, just wanted to do an update since there's so many things happening today with the Super League. It's crumbling. It's crumbling. I was out and about trying to kind of relax for the day, but my phone was just going crazy because you know, there's teams that have backed out essentially. If you guys haven't heard by now, that Chelsea has backed out of the Super League, as well as Manchester City, Atletico, and Barcelona. So, that being said, it's kind of like, well, if you don't have all the teams, it's looking pretty bleak, And I thought from the very beginning that the main pushers for this were Perez and the American owners for that are in the Premier League, FSG, the Glazers, and the Kroenkes. And it's looking bleak. It's looking very bleak for it, and it's crashing and burning quicker than they probably imagined. I'm learning that Boris Johnson probably had a big hand in getting Chelsea and Manchester City to come to their senses, but I just want to say, kind of before we get started, that I think it's really interesting that Chelsea fans and Manchester City fans are talking about their owners as if they're some sort of, saints or saviors for the game because they decided to do the right thing. They joined the Super League just like everybody else. They were just the first ones to cave. So these owners are still very, very dangerous people and are a menace to society, So let's not sit here and act like they're doing something, but obviously we're all waiting for the Kroenkes to pull out as well. I don't think they will pull out per se. I think it'll crumble with some sort of statement from the group at large, and it'll just dissolve, but what are you guys thinking about it? Seeing that Ed Woodward has resigned, as well as the guy from Juventus, Angeli, I think his name is, or something like that. They've both, resigned from their positions. So seeing that, it looks like there's a lot of repercussions for this thing kind of going tits up. So yeah, I think it's crazy how it's crashed and burned so quickly. And now they're talking about there may be, some repercussions in terms of the owners feeling like they may need to sell, because I'm trying to figure out how you rebound from this. There's so much disdain between the fans and in particular the Glazers and the Kroenkes. Those are the two ownership groups that I know have the most contentious relationships with their own fans. How do you come back from this, showing yourself to be ultimately money hungry, and you're willing to basically be deceitful and kill off football as we know and love it. You can never really come back from this, so yeah, I wonder, if in the next couple of days we'll hear more things about maybe the Glazers or the Kroenkes feeling like they might want to sell the clubs. That would be, I think, the best possible scenario, an unlikely scenario, but very interesting because we've all kind of wanted the club to go in a different direction. I think it would be nice if we could have a 50-1 rule similar to Germany, where the fans have to have a share, or some sort of ownership in the clubs. Bringing in somebody like Dangadia, of course, like that's more of like me just being funny, on Twitter. And like, I would love an owner that actually loves the club per se, but ultimately I think there needs to be more power vested in the fans. I think that's the direction in which English football needs to go into to prevent this from happening again. The way that things are structured now, anybody can come in and just flip the entire English football system on its head. And we've seen that. This has been a huge, huge warning. I don't think that the Super League per se is going to go away. I think that this was a very clunky, sloppy introduction to it. But over time, there will be policies and policy changes over the years that will slowly change the game and the European competitions to a version of this. And before we know it, we will be sitting with the Super League. But the way that they rolled it out was so clunky, and it didn't have any finesse to it. It was so very like, this is what we're going to do. And if you're not into it, you're out kind of thing. And it didn't go over. It just really didn't go over well, So how are you guys feeling about it? There's just so many things going on right now. New Dawn Game says 50+1 rule. Exactly. Like, before we start talking about what owners we'd like to come in, how do we get more power, give more power to the fans? Because if you give more power to the fans, that's how you stop this sort of thing happening and gain back trust. Arsenal has lost so much trust between the fans and the club, and that's the saddest thing, is that needs to be repaired. There's no amount of PR that can spin this into anything but complete deceit. It's deceit, it's ugly, it's disgusting, and it's greedy. So giving power back to the fans is, to me, the most important thing moving forward. Whether or not that could happen, we'll see. But I think the 50-1 rule is something that they need to implement in English football. C. Walder says there's an Arsenal Superman from Africa that was already planning to buy. Yeah, Dengati was planning to buy, and it's just so funny that he was talking about in 2021 he would be wanting to push to buy Arsenal. So we are in 2021 right now, and it's just so funny that it just kind of lines up that way. Whether or not he would take the opportunity to give Kroenke, Stan Kroenke, a good enough offer to part ways with Arsenal at the moment, I'm not quite sure. But seems as a good a time as any, right? Because I just don't understand how the Kroenkes come back from this. Jonathan Sinclair says Vinay and Stan have to leave. I would not be surprised if we saw somebody leave, because you're seeing at Manchester United that Ed Woodward is gone. They're calling it a resignation. It's a sacking, So, and then the guy from Juventus is also gone. We'll see who else's heads roll from this, but somebody from Arsenal's got to go down for this as well. Don One says big protests on Friday outside the Emirates, 1600. You better get your asses down there. Yeah, you guys, if you're able to, to make it over to the Emirates on Friday, please do so. The fans, vocal, the fans voicing their opinion about this, I think, had a huge effect on the idea of the Super League. There was a lot of backlash, and I think that that's a huge reason why Chelsea and Manchester City backed out. And it makes it easier for them to back out because they don't necessarily need this money. They don't need the Super League. It's a cool idea that they probably would be interested in, probably do want as a long-term vision, but they're still in a position where this summer they can go out and do whatever they want, and they're ultimately probably the two best teams in England at the moment. And so they don't have to go through with this if they don't really want to. It's the American owners that are really pushing this because they come from a sports model in which it's self-sustaining. They know what kind of, money is going to be coming in, what kind of income is going to be coming in, and they don't want to have to invest any of their own money, So the Manchester City and Chelsea owners, I'm not surprised that they're the first ones to bounce. I'm really, really not. But again, if you can get out there on Friday to protest at the Emirates at 1600, get your ass down there. NA026 says, you're such a good pundit, should be a regular on AFTV. Thank you for your compliment. I really appreciate it. Flosseneck says, if there's one good thing that could come from this, it's the American owners just lost their patience with the European market and pull out. Yeah. I mean, maybe this is their last ditch effort to try to Americanize Arsenal to a point where they could continue to own it. In order for Arsenal to get back to where they're consistently in the top four, because essentially what the American owners want is to be consistently in the top four so that a certain amount of money is coming in every single year, and top four will placate the fans enough where they're not asking for continuous investment. They can stop investing and just have their self-sustaining model. And I think that that was what the push was about. They wanted to get to that point because they know in order to get Arsenal to where Arsenal belongs, they're going to have to invest a lot of money. And I don't think they're really interested in doing that. The project of the Rams, the LA Rams has been a significant investment for them. And that's where their heart really lies, is in the NFL. So maybe this is was their last ditch effort. And because they couldn't, manipulate the English football model to suit them, maybe they will look to sell. Sarah says protest at 6 p.m. Remember, you guys, be there. Everybody's saying it. You guys, if you can be there, go be a part of it. I wish I could be there, but you guys go, make your voices heard. That's the only way that things will change. And the fans should never feel like they're silenced. We are the club, so if it made a difference, for Chelsea and Manchester City, it might make a difference for us as well. Having the fans outside of the stadium, making it known that they're not happy about what happened. And just even if it falls apart and they put out some janky statement, tomorrow about how it won't go through and all this kind of stuff, don't let them off the hook. Don't act like we can't just turn a blind eye and act like they didn't just try to destroy the sport that we love. So I think it has to be an ongoing effort to try to get these people away, from our club. Let's see. Don One says they tried their power move and it completely failed. Exactly. I mean, it was so rough, and aggressive, and it just reeked of desperation, which probably tells you where they are in terms of the club and, how they view their investment at this point. So let's see. I don't think that this is the end of this story. We all know that Arsenal is in a very precarious financial situation that's not going to just be magically, solved because we're going to have 10,000 fans in the stadium starting on the last day of the season or the last, home game of the season. And I just don't think that they're prepared to invest the amount of money that would get us into the top four, and be able to give them the opportunity to just kind of sit back and collect money. So let's see what happens. This is going to be very interesting. Seeing, I'm very surprised to see people gone, like Ed Woodward and the guy from Juventus. That shows me that this is a lot deeper than just, hey, we wanted to see what the reaction was, and now that it's not good, we're just going to act like it never happened. They can never go back, so this is going to be super, super interesting the next couple of days. Let's see. Jay Bruce says, I'm American and I feel embarrassed. I'm a young Black man in Washington, D.C., and I've been getting abused since the ESL news. I have nothing in common with these rich billionaire owners. How do you feel? Yeah, I mean, I think I kind of talked about this morning, and I see in the comments that, people are saying like, we don't blame the American fans, but that doesn't take away, or that doesn't stop the American fan from feeling embarrassed. And, we do see comments about ever since Americans became a part of European football, it's went to shit. We see that stuff, and you spend a lot of time trying to feel like a legitimate fan, because we can't just adopt your culture. We can't just walk around and act like we know everything, because we don't. And because we don't experience it on a daily basis, it'd be very difficult for us to feel like we belong. I spend most of my time trying to make sure that I understand it from your perspective, because I don't ever act like or feel like I can say I know what the English fan feels like, because I don't. So it's difficult. And it just feels like starting back at ground one. We want you guys to feel like we can be trusted. Not all Americans are the same. We don't want an Americanized version of English football, because we like the way it is now, because that's why we're watching, because it's nothing like American sports, so we hear and we understand that the majority of fans, don't believe that American fans are the problem. But you do get the odd comment here and there about, you're the problem too, or you don't understand, or of course you would want the Super League. I have somebody in my mentions now that is constantly telling me that I wanted the Super League because I said if there was one, I would want us to be in it. And I've said multiple times that I don't like the Super League and I don't want anything to do with it in terms of, I don't want it to come to fruition. But, even just saying that if there was one that I would want us to be in it, looks like I'm saying that it's a good idea, so it's that balance, of feeling like, you need to be very careful with your words and be gentle, because I can't imagine what it feels like being an English fan that also supports grassroots football and has watched, American owners come in and change the complexion of the game that they love, and go through the last 48 hours feeling like they're just ripping the soul out of the game, so I don't feel it the same way as you guys, but I do feel it. And, you know, we don't want it as much as you don't want it, so that's basically how I feel about it. Sarah says, how do fans react to the World Cup now? We need to keep going in terms of protests. Yeah, I mean, the World Cup is also an issue. What is it? Qatar essentially bought the World Cup, and now we're doing a World Cup mid-season in Qatar. It's also an issue, that is swept under the rug, because this has been more pressing and I think more jarring to the general public or the general football community. So I do think the World Cup is something that needs to be talked about as well, because that's problematic in itself. They bought a World Cup. We can't have people just buying tournaments now. That's greedy as well. Stuart Oz says, how is the Kroenkes seen in the US, Jess? I mean, they're not seen as anything because, ownership in the English football game is more like it's community based, because essentially the teams are built from the community. So, and it was like regular people, or obviously they were millionaires at the time, but the original owners of these clubs were more accessible than these billionaires that are coming in now. In American sport, the owners are not, they don't have these, they don't have calls to show their face and to show up to fan forums and to communicate with the fans. So in America, I don't even think the fans really know who the owners are. They don't know them because they're not expected to talk. They're not expected to communicate with the fans. So in the America, they're seen as normal owners. To be honest. Let's see. Bulgarian Gunnar says, what a relief, Jess. There's some things you just can't buy. Yeah, I know you're going through it in the last couple of days. I've seen your tweets, and I know that it's been very difficult, and it's been difficult for a lot of people because it just felt ominous, so I'm happy that, some people can take some comfort in feeling like the Super League is crumbling and it's not going to come to fruition, but don't forget that they tried to do this. Don't forget that this is Project Big Picture. This has been a long time in the works, and I have a very hard time believing that just because it didn't work out this time, that there won't be some version of it that is slowly implemented over time through policy changes. So keep that in mind. But for the time being, because we know it's not going to happen this summer, this is a win. It's a win for football and football fans. New Dawn Game says there will never be a better time to push for wage caps in the Premier League and European leagues and stop the downward spiral of wage arms race that's driving clubs towards bankruptcy, which was ESL's pretext. Yeah, I mean, there are some things that I saw about the ESL that I thought, well, yeah, maybe like wage caps would be a good thing, but ultimately, I think you have to keep the relegation and qualification aspects. It can't be a closed league, and as long as it's that, then it'll never sit well with the fans. But there were aspects of the ESL that I thought might be beneficial for, the future of football, because the wages of the players, player power, to me is a little bit too strong, but that's a whole nother conversation for a different day. um, Idur Marvin. I'm sorry if I just completely bottled that, but you just said you got home from work. What is happening now? Essentially, the the league is, or the Super League is crumbling. Chelsea, Manchester City, Barcelona, and Atletico Madrid have decided to exit, and they're working with their legal teams now to exit from the ESL. So at this point, it looks very ominous. It doesn't look like the ESL will come to fruition. They're saying that, KSE, the Glazers, and FSG are still very much in this project, and they have not, up until this point, said that they are out. Ed Woodward has resigned, from his position at Manchester United, and also the guy Angeli, I'm probably pronouncing that incorrectly, but from Juventus as well, has resigned from his position. So heads are rolling. It's complete and utter chaos, and we'll see what happens. There's protests going on at Stamford Bridge, I believe, at the moment. And there's protests that are going to be happening at the Emirates, as well as probably every other club, or top six club in the English Premier League, to try to voice, so the fans can voice their opinions about how they don't want this to happen. So that's essentially what's happening right now. New Dawn Games says all the grandstanding and rhetoric from UEFA and FIFA about the ESL ruining football can now be used against them by applying pressure on them to reform their own greedy practices, like 48 teams. Yeah, so exactly, like the thing that fans have to understand is that UEFA and FIFA are not the good guys in this. Essentially the reason why this is all taking place is because FIFA or UEFA have been greedy for years. And have been taking the majority of the money from the European competition for decades, so the clubs want a bigger piece of the pie and they're not getting it. So they try to force UEFA's hand by saying that, well, we're just going to start our own thing. So FIFA is not an angel. FIFA is not an angel. Everybody's greedy, and essentially it was just going to be a power shift. So I don't really know, it's important to understand that these are all rich people that are just kind of posturing for more power in whatever position that they're in. So we do need to apply more pressure on them for what they've been doing for the last couple of years. But I think it would be important for content creators and people in the know to educate the fans on UEFA, FIFA, the differences, how these things work, the trickle down effect, and maybe mobilize something, or mobilize some, a movement to get more power in fans, to get more power in the clubs. I think that's more important right now. Jet Next Door is saying fake news. Agnelli has not resigned. Juventus confirmed. Okay, so that is fake news. Don One says UEFA and FIFA better wake up. It's us fans saving them right now. Yeah, for real. Dublin Gooner says it's a story with no good guys. Exactly. And that's really the point, right? Is there's no real good guys here. And the fans this is a big wake-up call for the fans, and we need to push for some sort of more stake in the club, so that we have more leverage when these things happen, because these are our clubs, right? We're the ones we are the club. Most people, I mean, the players even know that without us, there's nothing, so we should have bigger stakes in the clubs moving forward. Yo-Yo says skeptical that fans have anything to do with today's events. Yeah. So what I kind of think as well is that I was thinking about this, Yo-Yo, too, that, Boris Johnson did get involved in this, and that's essentially when Manchester City and Chelsea decided to pull out. So I don't necessarily think it was all about the backlash. They knew the backlash was coming. They said that, that they knew that the backlash would come, but essentially they didn't really care, so I don't really think it's so much that. I think that what I want to see from the protests is protesting and making it known that fans need more stakes in these clubs. But in terms of, I agree with you, I don't necessarily feel like Chelsea and Manchester City really just pulled out because the fans were upset. They knew the fans would be upset, but I think it had something to do with Boris Johnson. And I'm interested to see maybe what um, what he had to do with it. But it can be a combination of all of it. The criticism from the fans, the whatever Boris Johnson said, the fact that it just was not a great idea to begin with. Um, but make no mistake, Sheikh Mansour and Abramovich are not angels. I have to say this again. I think it's just very short-sighted to say that they've saved football because they pulled out of something that they ultimately agreed to do. So again, there's no good guys here. There really isn't. Static says, hey, Jess, hopefully it goes downhill for Kroenke as well. He should have gone a long time ago with Usmanov wanting to buy him out. He was disgusted to say no to him and his offer. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens with Kroenke. We may wake up tomorrow. They'll just put up a little statement about how the Super League has been put on hold or something like that, and we'll just because ultimately the Kroenkes will leave when they want to. And I think a substantial offer would have to come in at this point for them to leave. So but this would be a better time than any for somebody to come in and put in an offer. DJ31 says, I'm seeing this narrative online from certain fans putting blame and anger on USA fans. They got to be really careful who they come after. Yeah. I mean, I kind of talked about this before, but as an American fan, it's really difficult. I understand why English fans maybe don't like Americans involved in their sport because we do tend to jump into things, take it over and change it, so I understand that and they don't want that. I get it, but American fans love the game because of the way that it is and none of us want to change it. So at least from my perspective, I don't know anybody who would want it to be Americanized. So again, I understand your concerns. And if you do feel like American fans are a problem, I get that. But from my perspective, I definitely don't want to see an Americanized version of English football, and I'm against the Super League. And I have your back 110%. I'm on your side. I just am. I hope that comes through. I don't do these streams and talk to you guys and stuff for just whatever reason. It's because I love the club and my only hope is that it comes through. And I like to be a part of a community, and this is the first time that I've ever really felt like a part of the Arsenal community, because around here there's not really anybody that I know that supports Arsenal, and it's just kind of like this little secret that I have. My friends kind of know that I follow this team that's like in England or whatever, but talking to you guys really makes me feel a lot more included, and that's all I really want, and I love the sport the way that it is. Yeah, we don't have to prove or look for your approval on being a fan. You lots are just lucky you get to go to the games. I don't think we have to necessarily prove that or get approval that we're being a real fan, but I think it is important to understand from the perspective of an English fan where they're coming from, and seeing Americans be more interested in the sport may feel like we're, kind of coming in on their territory a little bit. So I think it's important to understand where the anxiousness comes from, because look at what the Kroenkes have been doing, and sometimes you just look at a group of people and think it's just bad, so I do understand where the anxiousness comes from. New Dawn Game says, you've nailed it, Jess, by framing it as just a shift in power. FIFA and UEFA's grandstanding was sheer hypocrisy, though ironically, it was needed. The spotlight now must be turned on them. Exactly. I like that. Let's see. Damien says, Aliko Dangati has been trying to buy Arsenal for years. What's happening with him? I don't know. Just because I think Ed Woodward has left, and then so the natural news would be after that maybe the Glazers will sell, maybe KSC will sell, so we'll see if there's some substantial evidence that comes to light in the next couple of days that the Kroenkes will be interested in selling Arsenal. I think it's an interesting idea. I think this would be the best possible time to put in a substantial offer to make the Kroenkes think, because they weren't able to implement their Americanized version of football on English football, so they failed. And maybe their desperation to do that was because they don't feel confident in their ability to get Arsenal into a place where they don't have to put in their own money, so we'll see what happens in the next couple of days. It could just be paper talk, that there is a club that's thinking about putting the club on, up for sale in the next couple of days, but we'll see. Don One said, Roman didn't save a thing. Bayern Munich did the damage when they didn't join. I mean, I think that was a big thing, and especially because Perez lied about it and tried to say that they never invited PSG and Bayern. Yes, you did. Like, come on. Why are you lying? I mean, that entire show that he did was like a complete lie, but Bayern Munich and PSG not joining was a big, I think, L for Perez in the Super League idea. So yeah, for sure. But Roman didn't save anything. They were in it. Football Heritage Podcast says the last 2 days have felt like a movie. I mean, it's so true. It has felt like surreal. On Sunday, I was like getting ready for, to talk about Fulham. Remember we tied Fulham, to talk about Fulham and, the tactics that didn't work and El Neni and things like that, and how we're going to prioritize Europa League and Everton. We haven't talked about that at all. All we've been talking about is this Super League. It's been a crazy, crazy day for the football community. And I don't think it's quite over. I think the damage that has been done in the last 48 to 72 hours has been horrendous. And I don't think just, a simple tweet going out saying that we put it on pause or it hasn't worked out is going to completely nullify, the fact that this happened. And we still need to talk about how to mobilize past now, because this is a huge, huge warning to the football community that these guys can turn around at any moment and take football away. We can never forget that. Don One says Roman lost his bottle first in jump ship. Exactly. And they have these big PR companies working for them that comb through the comments and make decisions based on, public appeal and public, feelings on how they feel about the club. And I just wouldn't be surprised if their PR said, this is going tits up. You need to bail first, because the narrative that we can spin is that you came to your senses and you wanted to do the right thing. And that's essentially what it did for the Chelsea fans. They were so elated that they were the first ones to cave that it almost felt like a win for them, when it wasn't. It's just he was the first one to make the PR move to leave the Super League. Deb says, what do you think is going on in the players' heads? Will they be able to focus on the upcoming games? I mean, I think seeing that Aubameyang had deactivated his Twitter was enough for me to say that, or enough for me to feel like the fans don't have their priorities straight. The last thing we need to be doing is holding the players accountable for something that's not really their fault, and let them live. They're learning about these things at the same time. They're learning about, if we're a part of the Super League, we're going to have wage caps. That's going to change their lives, that they're going to be in a closed off league, things like that. They're learning the exact same things that we were at the same time, because they weren't briefed. They were learning about it on Twitter, just like we were, so I can't imagine that they're able to concentrate on these games as much as they probably should be, which is a worry, because we have really important games coming up. Based on the last couple of games that I saw, Leeds versus Liverpool, Brighton versus Chelsea, the first half of that didn't look great, but that could just be because they're playing midweek games, or early week games or whatever. But I think it's going to be difficult for them to concentrate, because there's a lack of trust between the players in the club as well. Remember, our players went through the whole debacle with the wage cuts, so I think it's going to be difficult, for them to concentrate. And I wouldn't really blame them for that, because that is a huge emotional shift, emotional roller coaster that we've all been on. But they're on the inside. They're actually working for these clubs, and they're expected to grin and bear it. But let's be kind to our players. Let's not I think Aubameyang said like, well, because everybody just wants me to talk about the Super League, and whatever, I'm just going to deactivate. This is not for them to answer, and they should still be able to live their lives. Day, come on, you Gunner says, I seen you on Diluted Gunner's channel and really enjoyed you chatting about Arsenal. I hope you get noticed by AFTV or Barstool with troops. Thank you. I had fun on Diluted's channel. I think he's a really good content creator, and I've been watching him for a while. He's one of the first people that I found on YouTube, and I think he really knows his stuff. He's actually really underrated, in my opinion, because he really knows the game and a lot about the youth, which I think is really why he stands out. I'm just happy that you guys are enjoying the content. Thank you. I really appreciate that. Yo-Yo says it's all contrived. The 12 owners have revealed themselves. Exactly. There's no way to go back from this. Don't you guys think that? There's no way to go back from this. We never trust them anyway, but if there was any chance of them gaining any trust over time, it's over. It's done. Bulgarian Gunnar says there must be consequences. What do you think that should be? What if it just came down to, us getting relegated? We're hearing about that, that they might just relegate us. If we don't come out and actually, leave the Super League, that we'll just get relegated, points deducted, things like that. So I know that Harry Simi was talking about early on his channel that we should be relegated, or all the 6 teams should be relegated. I don't know what the ramifications of this should be. It's hard for me to want the club to suffer for what the owners have done, because that means the players suffer, the staff suffers, we suffer for it as well, and it's not our fault. So the only way that they'll feel it is in their pockets, and I'm not really sure how they can maneuver that, but there definitely needs to be some sort of consequences. Let's see. New Dawn Game says, just being a bit hyperbolic, but seriously, they need to go and do one. For sure. Name Block says, of course, Chelsea and City pulled out. Their owners have ambition and willing to spend to win. I tweeted that earlier, that of course they're the ones who bailed first. They don't need this. They don't need it. It's the American owners that really want to push this through. It's FSG, KSC, and the Glazers. They want to push this through. Chelsea and City, they know that they're going to be on the top of the game regardless. They know this, regardless of what happens, they're going to spend as much money as possible to stay on top. So I think for them, it was just a matter of they were involved. They wanted to see kind of how it shook out. And they always knew that they would just back out if things didn't really go their way. So yeah, I'm not surprised that it was them when they said it was 2 clubs that were wanting to bail. Of course it was them. Name Block says we've never been relegated until the Kroenkes. If they relegate us, that would be harsh, but at the same time, it wouldn't be surprising based on what we've done, so this is really damaging. I just don't think that they can put out some newsletter or something tomorrow saying that it just didn't work out. We'll just put it on pause, go back to what you were doing, before that. They can never do that. Milton Jardine says, I love how Man City and Chelsea are taking the moral high ground when they couldn't abide by financial fair play to make things right in the first place. That is a really, really good point. These guys have been culprits of financial fair play. So this whole we're out of the Super League now, we're doing the right thing. Come on. Oh, and also, they're talking about how they didn't know that this is what it was. They were duped. They were conned into this whole thing. Manchester City is the same club, right? That had 11 of the best lawyers in the world on their side, trying to figure out a way to get them out of that financial fair play situation that they were in last year. I have a hard time believing that those same lawyers didn't read through the contracts that they were signing and didn't understand what kind of situation that they were putting themselves in. It's just all a joke. It's just a joke. Cozy's Arsenal podcast says, Jess, I think we need to impact the owners, not the clubs. It's just the Kroenkes, not all Arsenal. That's how I kind of feel too as well, that relegating us or, points being deducted would be a very harsh punishment, because that really only punishes the players, the fans, the staff, people like that. But the Cronkies are the ones that need to go down for this. Oop, we're not going to put that one up. No AFTV slander, you guys. Let's just, keep it cool, okay? Jonathan says, do you think the owners will sell the clubs? I don't know. I'm wondering. Again, I think if somebody was interested in buying Arsenal, this would be a really good time to put in a substantial offer that the Cronkies would consider, because they're clearly desperate. What they've done has shown how desperate they are to put themselves in a situation financially to survive. And they're not willing to invest in the team enough to get us to where we feel like we should be, or where Arsenal deserves to be. So this is their desperate attempt to cut corners, and it didn't work. So if they are as desperate as I feel like they are, maybe somebody who's wanted to buy the club should put in an offer. But do I think they'll just be selling it off at very cheap prices? No, I don't. Let's see. I saw a question. Yo-Yo says, what do you think was the difference between why people reacted differently to Abba today than Bamford last night? I don't really know. I think Aubameyang and Bamford are two different players with two different narratives surrounding them. So maybe Aubameyang, just because of recent events, he's kind of seen as this flashy guy that, is getting all the money and all this kind of stuff. So maybe it's just a matter of that. Aubameyang is just not, he's a likable character and we do like him, but we tend to turn on him very quickly. And, the fans, I think the last thing they want to see is, some of them is, the players looking happy or whatever when we're going through pain. I see that very often, that it's like, I don't want to see the player smiling after a loss or whatever, So I don't really know, but Bamford has a very good narrative around him. This, guy that was mistreated and misunderstood, and he finally got a chance under Bielsa, and he's finally being, treated right, and, this kind of thing, so I don't really know, but the narrative around the two players are completely different. So I wouldn't be surprised if people reacted to them differently. Bulgarian says, question, if us getting relegated and the 5 other clubs means KSC sells, would you take it? I would. Whew. That is but that was a question that I think we were kind of going through earlier this year, and definitely last season, when we first kind of realized that we were not really, we were bad. A lot of people were saying that maybe we should just get relegated so the Cronkies will sell. I'm not sure that relegation would make them sell. I'm not sure what it would be that would make them sell. But if I had it in writing that if we got relegated that they would leave, maybe I would. I think there's a lot of Arsenal fans that, the real Arsenal fans, I think, would still be interested in Arsenal, even if we were in a division lower trying to get back up. That's very, very dangerous game to play, because we could be swimming down there for a while. But I think we need a change in ownership. I think we've all known that for a while. So I don't know. Ask me tomorrow. That's a really tough question. I don't know if I want to be, because if we're swimming around there for a while, I can see why we're like, well, why did we get rid of the Cronkies if we're still down here? I don't know. Sean says Brett Bamford is actually hated a lot. No, that's actually not the narrative that I've heard over the last couple of weeks and months. He's a success story, in my opinion. He's been hated on a lot over the years, but what I've gathered, from the pundits and the commentary around this kid is that he comes from money. So he's had to work really hard to be legitimized as this guy coming through the ranks, and under different managers, he was seen as somebody probably with an attitude. And now that he's with Bielsa understands him, and he's completely changed, the narrative around him. This is somebody that's people are actively saying needs a call up to the English national team. So I do think the narrative around Bamford is different than the narrative around Aubameyang. The narrative around Aubameyang is pretty bad at the moment, so, and narratives change, so he may have been hated before, but I think people like him at the moment. I really, really do. But we could debate that all day, because my thing about narratives, I could go deep about narratives. I really, really could. Name Block said relegation is out of the question. Yeah, for sure. I mean, I can understand why people would be like, no, under no circumstances do I want to be relegated, because we literally could be down there forever, but I can understand why you'd want to be relegated if that meant the Kroenkes would leave. Would you guys take that? I want to ask you guys, if being relegated meant that the Kroenkes would leave, would you take that, like right now? Milton says, I would not take relegation for Kroenke out, but if you bring the other 5 with us, it does make it debatable. Does it though? Because if you bring the other 5 with us, I mean, I'd almost rather us be the only ones getting relegated, because you're talking about Manchester United relegated. That doesn't mean that their owners are going to leave. So if you have Chelsea and Manchester City in the championship with us, what is the likelihood of us coming back up? Their owners are going to pay their way straight up out of the EFL. So I don't know. That's a very, very difficult question. Bulgarian says, it. Of course, yeah, you guys don't put that in the chat. I don't want to see anything about Arteta has resigned. I know he has not. Don't do that to me. Cozy says, you would. Okay. Idor says, hell no. Bonkers LFC says FSG out. Before this, did you guys dislike FSG? I wonder, any Liverpool fans that are watching right now, before this, were you anti-FSG? Because you guys have been relatively successful for the last couple of years. And I know that Arsenal fans and Manchester United fans are very anti-Glazer/KSE. So I would like to know, like, from any Liverpool fans that are watching, before this, were you anti-FSG? How do you feel about them? New Dawn Game Sense depends on who buys, unless 50+1 is implemented. No. Yeah, I think that's important for us to try to push for more stake in the club, for 100%. Fans need some sort of say in this. Relentless Sport Hub says Stan is out here moving mad. Yeah. When he said that he didn't understand what the whole uproar about this was, I was like, this man is absolutely unhinged. He's not connected to what's going on. And a lot of times rich people are not connected to the rest of us, because they're just kind of in their own world. They don't understand why anybody wouldn't want to see the best teams, the biggest teams, because for them, biggest team means most brandable team, the team that has the most eyes on them, so they don't understand why we wouldn't want to see these teams playing against each other week in and week out. They think that that's awesome. These are the same people who hired Raul, that had a very sketchy record at Barcelona, and let him play around with our money when he was a big part of why Barcelona are in debt net, like right now. So in the Kroenkes' minds, Barcelona, Arsenal, these names, these brands mean something, and they don't. They really, really don't. It's about what happens on the pitch, and that's what they're missing. This guy actually said he didn't understand what the big deal was. He's deluded. The man is absolutely out of his mind. Let's see. Arib says success was down to Klopp. Yeah. I mean, he did do the majority of the job, but FSG did, put together the scouting network and bring in Klopp, so that you guys had a good system going for you to recruit the right types of players. So is FSG in the same boat as Kroenkes and the Glazers? Super Cami Guru says FSG tried to trademark us, tried to up the ticket prices, and done some seedy stuff. So FSG out. Okay, because sometimes I don't pay attention to everybody as closely as our clubs. So I don't really know how you guys feel about them, but I do remember the ticket prices thing. I do. PSA says, yes, because they failed to maintain the success by the lack of signings. So is that talking about like the center backs? Mm, Arsenal didn't leave the ESL. No, they haven't. As of now, we we're still in it. We have not left. They also have pretty much said that we're not leaving, so we'll see how this all pans out. Okay, Anton says, as a Liverpool fan, I am disappointed with the bad decisions that are being made over the last few weeks. Yeah. Gent next door says, stop looking for white knights. This is not over. This will rumble until the renegotiated the money pot. There's no saviors here. Exactly. Um, some Super Cami says, no lack of signings. They didn't invest, never do use our money for signings, all about profit. Okay, good to know. Good to know. Name Block says, American Greed sponsored by JP Morgan. Yeah. But FSG is different, though. They may do shady stuff, but they do contribute to on the pitch success, like with on the pitch, unlike the Cronkies. So yeah, for sure. I think that's the thing that I was kind of wondering about, because you guys have been successful in the last couple of years, that they have to be doing something right. Ultimately these owners are all out for self, except for Abramovich. I think he actually just loves the fact that Chelsea are good and he can brag about it and that kind of stuff. But for the most of the part, these owners are doing this for themselves, and for their portfolio. I don't think FSG is any different. I just think that they're a little bit different because they do kind of care about the club being successful, and being in top four is a big deal. And they push to be better than that. They push to win the Champions League and things like that. So I wondered how you guys felt about it, but yeah, that's really really good to know. This is a good question by Sean. Would I swap Kroenke for Roman? It's a really good question, because I'm thinking about it and I'm like, the ideal owner I don't think exists. I think you have owners like Abramovich and Sheikh Mansour, and then you have the Kroenkes. Um, so I think I would say yes, for the simple fact that I know that he is dedicated to the club being at the top, you know, and winning, and that's essentially what we care about. Um, so because I think that the ideal owner doesn't really exist, this guy that loves Arsenal and is going to put all his money in and all this kind of stuff, I don't really think that exists. So if I have to choose between Stan and Abramovich, I would probably take Abramovich, knowing that there's probably some downside to him as well. But I know that we would never go through a summer transfer window feeling like we were going to end up with Willian, So yeah. But you guys have been going for about an hour. So that's all the updates. I'll be back tomorrow at 7. Or sorry, it's not 7. It's 3 p.m. UK time. So that's your guys' time, but 7 a.m. my time, to give updates about this. I'll keep updating you guys until it's over, so I will see you guys. Okay, I see that people are asking, is there mods in the chat? If you guys feel like I need mods in the chat, I'll get somebody in there. To be honest, there's 80 something of you guys watching, and there's almost 100 at the peak. Probably should get mods if there's going to be this many people in here. So, I will get somebody in here to moderate the chat. But yeah, I'll see you guys tomorrow again at 3 p.m. UK time for another update on the Super League, and see if there's any more information about Arsenal and, just the league in general. Take care of yourselves, you guys. Get some rest, and I'll see you later. Bye, guys.